Hey everyone, Connie here, and there's a question I've been asked by multiple people in the past, and even by my sister. And that is, how do I feel about the presentation of the Okama in One Piece? What do I feel about them, like, especially as a trans woman? Do I find them to be offensive? And do I find the representation to be like hard to watch as a trans woman in a really cringy way, in a way that brings One Piece down for me, any of that kind of stuff? The simple answer is no. The long answer, let's get into that. So, first off, if you have not watched a lot of One Piece, what are the Okama? Well, the Okama are a group of characters in One Piece who are, simply put, cross dressers. They are male characters, for the most part, who cross dress and act in a more feminine manner. Some of the more well known ones include Mr. Two Bon Clay, also known as Bentham, and Emporio Ivankov of the Revolutionary Army, um, who has a very striking resemblance to Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Um, the characters have been have been given a lot of flack by a lot of people for being transphobic in their representation, and especially with the way Sanji interacts with them in disgust and horror. Um, and the kind of joke where about Sanji thinking that they're quote unquote real women at first, only to be disappointed and disgusted by them. But the thing here is they're not women. Like, again, pretty much at all. I think there's a couple who count, but they're more for. I'll get into that in a bit. Let's just put it that way. I'll get into that in a bit. For the very vastly most part, the Okama are just male cross dressers, and they're more basically comparable to drag queens than anything. And yes, there can be trans drag queens. There are trans drag queens, but again, I'll get into more of that later. Um, the Okama, for the most part, are male cross dressers who they just dress and act more feminine. Hell, Morley of the Revolutionary Army, who we've recently met in my reactions, is an Okama. And he talks in a very feminine manner. He acts very feminine. He kind of dresses feminine, but not as much as others who we've seen. But at the same time, like, he's a guy. And it's like, for most of the interpretation with this, people have like looked very positively on the likes of Bon Clay and Ivankov. Like, I haven't seen almost anyone complain about them. Most of the complaints do come from like Sanji, when he's on their island and stuff. The way he treats them, the way he reacts towards them, and again, it's more of the case that Sanji was expecting and originally thought they were going to be real women, which he kind of has a simp attitude towards, um, only to find out they're cross dressers instead, and so it's like, okay, but it's never had like anything to do with transphobia because they're not trans. They're not even supposed to be seen as trans. And so it's like it's a kind of a completely different thing. But then there's New Comma. So New Comma is kind of like this this, how would I put it? This group of people that within Impel Down, led by Emporio Ivankov. And Newcomma has more of a fluidity with with gender than the rest of the Okama portrayed in the series do. Um, there's more fluidity with it, and part of that is because of Ivankov's devil fruit power, allowing him to change people's physical characteristics at will through hormone injections. Basically, that's what it comes down to. Really fast acting hormone injections. um, and it's like, so the gender is a lot more fluid there, and but again, that's not something I hear people complain about when they talk about this. Again, it's mostly just the portrayal of the specific, like, very cartoonish looking Okama who, like, Sanji mostly interacts with, those ones. Um, it's almost never with Bonchan. It's almost never with Ivankov or anything like that. It's mostly always with those. And again, I think it's people not necessarily looking at something that's not there. It's more like they're misinterpreting it. They're misinterpreting what is there. And I by no means blame people for, like, seeing that either. Like, if you're not really, I can see why people think that, and I'm glad that they're sticking up for trans people. I'm glad so many people are trying to stick up for trans people by, like, arguing against this, but it's not really a thing. Um, and here's why. And here, this is a big thing. So, um, this is probably the last part I'm going to talk about this. So, pretty much everything from here on, I'll just give a spoiler warning. For the Wano arc of One Piece. The spoiler warning going forward, past where I am in the anime. Let's just put it this way. This is basically stuff I've even been spoiled on. Um, Normally I wouldn't talk about that, and I won't talk about it in the reactions or anything. But this is something just to talk about here. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video, outside of just, like, closing everything out. But this is a spoiler warning for the Wano arc. If you don't want to be spoiled, I don't think it's, like, huge to the storyline, but it might be. I don't know. But big spoiler warning going forward for Wano. Okay, so for those who are still here, this is, like I said, this is something I've been spoiled on, and I don't know all the details behind it. I just know it's a thing. In Wano, there are two trans characters. One is trans male, and one is trans female. I don't know the details behind either. I don't even know their names. Well, I don't know all the details because I know the trans male character still looks stereotypically feminine. Basically, the trans male character, he refers to himself as male. He believes himself to be male. He, well, knows himself to be male. And he's even referred to as male. But he looks what we stereotypically believe feminine to look like. Um, and there's the trans female character, who, on the other hand, looks entirely stereotypical feminine. Like, you would never know out if it weren't basically said. And that's all I know about it. But the fact is, there are two canon trans characters in this series. And again, I don't know all the details. I don't know their names. I don't even really know what they look like. I might have seen their pictures before, but I don't know which characters they are because I've seen a lot of pictures of characters from this series or from this arc going forward. So I don't technically know who they are yet. I just know that they exist. But that is the point. There are at least two canon trans characters coming up in the Wano arc. And they're portrayed, from what I've read, in an extremely positive, affirming way. And that's wonderful. That's amazing. But that also goes to show that the Okama are not meant to be seen as trans. They're meant to be seen as cross dressers, as for an older term for it, transvestites, because that's a lot of people don't know that's what transvestites mean. What that term means. A transvestite is just a cross dresser. A lot of people surprisingly don't know that's what that term means. Um, but yeah, it's like they're just cross dressers. Again, more comparable to drag queens than to trans people. And so I've never really been offended by it. And knowing that there are two trans characters who come up in the future, even though I don't know any big details behind them and don't even know their names or which characters what they look like, because of all the different characters from Wano I've seen pictures for and all. Um, yeah, it's just the fact that there is that representation in there. It's like, oh, there's actually more to this. And it just goes to prove, like, yeah, the Okama aren't that bad. And again, it's like they're just really flamboyant, feminine presenting cross dressers. That's all they are. And it's like, yeah, the worst of the cringiest part is the way Sanji reacts to them. But even so, it doesn't come across as transphobic to me. It just comes across as they're not women like he thought they were. They're cross dressers instead. It's not what he's into. It's still a little cringy in the presentation of it, sure, but that's about it. So, those are my thoughts on the Okama of One Piece. Um, and again, I have no problem with them because, like many, I love Bonchan. Bonchan is amazing. He's a hero. Like the way he helped Luffy and them escape from Impel Down, like shit, he's a hero, man. And Ivankov is fantastic. Like, you kidding me? And I like Morley so far of the Revolutionary Army. Well, Ivankov is as well, but since we've met Morley recently in my reactions, I've liked him so far. So it's like I don't see the issue here. I personally don't. If some trans women do find it a little more offensive, then I mean I can't tell them they're wrong for their feelings in that way, and I won't. I'm just saying try to look at it from this other angle. Try to see it as it's not a representation of trans women. It's more of a representation of cross dressers, of drag queens, of that kind of thing. In fact, hell, I believe Ivankov is actually based off of a real life drag queen that Oda is friends with. So it's like it even kind of there's even kind of proof what the Okama are based off of. Um, but yeah, so just overall, my thoughts, I don't mind them really. And I'm not just saying this to like act like One Piece doesn't have issues. It does, but not really anything that's relevant to this conversation. One Piece has a lot of issues. It has over just over 1,000 chapters now. Because I think chapter 1,001 came out, but I might be wrong. But it either has 1,000 or just over chapters of the manga, and has almost as many episodes. It's like, yeah, of course it's going to have problems, but I don't think this is one of them. Um, so tell me your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of the Okama of One Piece? Do you think they're problematic, or do you think they just might be just maybe a little cringy at times, maybe a little just weird in their presentation? Tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.